Thank you for both of you. Dave Dunn and also Joe Michael both had conflicts too. They were, so, I don't know, this is a hard one to get me to sit down. Sit out there somewhere.
Only one's less popular than us are there.
I don't have anything specifically on my agenda, so why don't you guys go ahead. Stan, you want to go first?
Okay, I'm Stan Firestone. We work with producers from California to Canada, and we supply retail segment, both domestic and international. And your comments you just had regarding promotion, I think you're on track. Part of what we see is we use the health benefits of blueberries that launched into Korea about 8 years ago. And they were not familiar with blueberries, frozen blueberries, but we are not able to put frozen blackberries or raspberries in. The Chileans can, but the U.S. can. So these are things that would be good to work on. The frozen fruit segment is really red hot. I mean, it's the #1 item in the frozen food category. So sales are up 70% the last 5 years. The problem is what's the consumer buying? Mango's a new hot item. Organics coming in. So the Chileans are bringing in a lot of organic blueberries, and that's being pressured. So if we can get out there with health benefits, promote raspberries and blackberries, they seem to have been left behind a little bit. We try to put it in every blend we put out, but I think we can really promote that. Other issues we see, the dollar is very strong, makes the buying power of fruit coming out of Chile very, very good. It also puts your selling into foreign markets at a disadvantage. So what we also saw was that when we opened up the Korean market, we were working against a 30% duty. The Chileans were on about a 3% duty. And as soon as we opened that market up, the Chileans set up an office right in Seoul, and they promoted, hey, we only have a 3% duty. So that duty is going away. It's down to 12%, 16, 6%, 17, 0%, 18. But I will say the Northwest is the go-to region in the world for international buyers like the quality, and they like the food safety that we have here. Those are two items we really need to continue to work on. The thorns are still an issue, and everybody, I know everybody probably is, but B gap certified, it's every buyer, that's a top priority for them.
Okay. Thanks. So Mark May, RainSweet. I second everything that Stan said. I think that I think we all kind of have an understanding of what the challenges are. It's really about how to address them and the opportunities. I mean, the good news, as Stan said, is this region is truly recognized as having incredibly high quality fruit. And any buyer that has the opportunity to buy what they need out of this region will buy here before other regions unless price just simply dictates that they've got to compete in another way. And that is important. The quality reputation of this region is just second to none, clearly. So the idea really then is how to leverage that. And as I said, I mean, after you have quality, I mean, then it's price. It's being competitive, and price does make a difference out there. There are many things to discuss, but I want to go back to some things that were said earlier. I hadn't really thought about it much before today, but I think the concept of going national in promotion on blackberries is certainly worth discussing further. The ORBC is a great organization. One of my concerns about it has simply been the size of the budget and the ability to make a dent in a very, very big challenge. Despite best efforts of everyone involved, the blueberries have an enormous budget behind them. So I think the idea of a rising tide lifting all boats by doing a nationally based promotion, scheme does make sense, even if it does promote fresh blackberries that aren't coming from here, and even because you guys aren't going to grow all the blackberries that are consumed in the United States, but it creates a lot of other opportunities. So I think that that's a really fascinating concept that should be considered separately. I will say, when it comes to blackberries, future, thornless, you've heard it here at this before. People are asking for thornless first and then filling in with Marions more and more. I know that there are some thornless Marions starting to float around, but the demand out there, food safety, the bramble issue is not going away, and thornless is going to be the way of the future. I just have no doubt about that. I mentioned organic. There's a big push for organic. I think we talked about it here the last couple of years. Big push for organic. I know that's really hard, blackberries in this region, but just telling you what people are asking for out there. I'd almost like to turn it around rather than me just spewing on what's on my mind. Open it up for questions, and there's always questions from this room when it comes to what we see going on, and maybe turn it into a bit more of a dialogue than a speech. Yeah.
Okay, you just got back from the AFI.
Yeah.
What was and before you went down there, you knew that they were going to raise the minimum wage. So what was the response from the buyers when you told them that the cost of running the processing facility and the cost of us, labor costs are going up for us? What was the reaction? Were they willing to pass on the cost, or are they going to try to shove it down our throat again?
I almost look at it as benign neglect on their part. They don't care. I don't mean to put it, they just don't care. So we don't really go down there saying, hey, we're going to need more money because the minimum wage has gone up. I mean, it affects obviously processors as well as growers, we know this. Because if we go down there saying, hey, we are going to need more money in the future, the only thing the buyer hears is, where else can I buy cheaper? That's where they're going immediately. So we honestly try to avoid that sort of dialogue. It just is pushing people away. What's your take on?
No, I totally agree.
You say it pushes people away, but 2 minutes ago you said we are the premier place for quality product, but is that not working again?
At a price.
Yeah,
At a
so
price.
I have this saying,
Price point.
and I mean, it's to be mindful when we're out doing something, and that is that good enough at a better price wins. Now, good enough is defined by the buyer. We don't necessarily get to dictate what that is. But if it's good enough and it's at a better price, they're going to buy. So even though we have the best stuff, there's always good enough depending on what the price is. And by the way, good enough, it's a lot lower in quality the bigger the price discrepancy, right? So Mexican fruit sells, worms and all. People don't particularly like the flavor all that much. There are problems with bugs, but if the fruit is 30% less in cost, sell some. It's just the way it is. It becomes good enough at that point. And it's a dynamic situation. I mean, good enough is highly variable. But just because you have the best doesn't mean everybody wants it because of the best.
Kind of a big, as you see the evolving, look at a package of, say, triple berry. Pretty much all of them have taken Berry off and just put Blackberry on.
Even if they still got Marions in the bag, to some degree, they're still taking that off.
Do they always list the country of origin for each berry?
It doesn't. It's not labeled that way. You're just required to put the origin of what's in the bag. But yeah. But if there's 4 berries, Pardon?
So that doesn't really help. I mean, because if you bring in blueberries from South America, or, strawberries from Mexico, that doesn't tell the consumer anything.
Right, it'll just say product of.
So why don't the packers, the salespeople, have a picked and packed in the USA label on there?
Well, certainly some have historically and still do. I can't explain why people don't always buy the best, right? I mean, the price becomes an issue. If there's-
Well, I'm just saying, from my own perspective, when I go to the fish market, and I see fish from Vietnam and fish from Honduras or whatever, and fish from the Oregon coast, I'm gonna buy the Oregon, the US one. I might even buy Canada before I'm gonna buy,
Yep.
so. But to me, it makes a difference. I'm just not thinking about, from my perspective as a consumer. I look at it that way now, maybe I'm just one of few.
No, we always try to promote product to USA. I mentioned a little earlier about most retailers, what they saw in the success of Whole Foods. About every retailer thought, I'm going to make real Whole Foods in my store. So the demand for organic skyrocketed. And so that put more pressure on the retail sector of conventional fruit. They were only going to carry one or the other, or decided and not both. So the retail buyer, and must be that the consumer's not worried about, they didn't care where that organic product came from, whether it was Turkey, Chile. So yes, we're always.
It's just like here, Roth's markets are kind of a premium. Well, there's also a dollar store. Different people have different priorities. We have to try to serve as many of them as we can.
What has been the impact of organic berries? Have you seen that where you're working?
It's enormous.
Pardon me?
It's an enormous impact. Organic is, it's a big deal right now. I don't know how else to put it.
Do you guys have producers you're working with who are developing organic systems that work in the Northwest?
For blackberries?
Yeah.
We're not working with anybody right now. It might be happening. I know people are looking at it, but we're not working with anybody successful. I don't know who are.
It's all foreign product.
We have in the past processed organic blackberries. They stopped doing it because it wasn't economical.
We can produce just about anything that we can sell, but we still have to make money at it. So we can probably experiment enough and produce an organic blackberry, because we know that we can produce organic blueberries, but it's still at a price point. And can we sell it, or what is an organic blackberry worth in comparison to a conventional blackberry? Worth double, or is it worth triple, or is it worth 20% more?
I don't know what your pricing is, but like right now, organic blackberries you could buy out of South America for maybe $1.90 a pound. Just throwing a number. And these numbers change all the time. So conventional stuff's in the $1.05, $1.10 range. Not out of Mexico, maybe that's at 80 cents. That's where it is today. Ish. It'll change tomorrow, and what Stan bought for yesterday was different than that. So it gives you an idea of what we're talking about. In the back.
I'm just curious about, you said that they are not necessarily mentioning Marions. Is it mostly the thorn issue? Is it mostly there's a lack of marketing of the Mary berry? Because a lot of times you will use a Marion to flavor other berries that don't have that flavor. What's the main reason that Mary berries are not getting potentially the press that they should be getting?
That's a great question. I think where if you could promote that brand, Blackberry, and because it is a premium blackberry. And we promote it as, this is your premium blackberry. This is what we'd like to market. And it's just getting the consumer out there to take hold of that.
Because of pricing, because the Marion typically more money is that in
And it's just that it's not, what you say, it's not really well known out nationwide on the retail level.
So I think it's two things. I might be slightly different than you, mostly aligned, but it's certainly not well known. I mean, but on the other hand, I don't think it's really for lack of trying. It's Marion Berry. I'd say the biggest reason to answer your question most directly is where it has been labeled, as Stan mentioned before, it's gone off and it's just called Blackberry now. When there's a short year, the retailer, whoever owns that brand, whoever, they want that bag on the shelf. They don't want to take it off the shelf. So if they can't get Marion's, they have to fill in with something else. And if they're filling in with something else, they can't say Marion. And so, you know, if you think about it, you build a brand, you've got your bags of fruit on the shelf, business is going good. All of a sudden you find out one of your key fruits isn't as available as you would like. You know, do you cut sales or do you buy something else to keep your velocity up? And most people will buy something else to keep the velocity up because they're in business to sell that bag of fruit. And for flexibility purposes, they have to take Marion off. It's not usually they don't like it. So I think that's probably the number one reason behind it coming off. I could go on, but that's probably the single biggest thing. You know, there's a limited supply. It's 17 million, 20 million, 25, 30 million pounds. Anybody that wants to grow their business beyond what's available has to look at adding something else in.
Is there a consistent berry that sells the most every year, given, I mean, obviously we're talking price fluctuation, we're talking availability and all of that. Is there a single berry that seems to hit a blackberry every year being the most sold?
Well, historically, it's been Marion Berry. I mean, you look at the numbers, that's very clear. I think, but right now, that trend is starting to shift. And I mean, it's Marion's because that's what's available. Most acres are planted. That's the single largest volume of fruit produced. But I think that's just going to switch. That's going to begin to switch over the mix into, you know, Black Diamond, Columbia Star, whatever Oregon State comes up with next.
That's thornless.
That's thornless.
Is there a way, or would it be valuable for us to somehow label Northwest blackberries in the same way, get more of a brand? I mean, the buyers want good quality for a commodity price, and right now we're just lumped in with blackberries. Isn't that true?
What I'm going to say is,
I'll answer, but we're talking about that. Okay, so Stan doesn't want a piece of that. No, so I think that's another important point. It's the difference between a private company branding something and then an industry branding something. I think there's plenty of opportunity for private companies to brand a berry blend that's all Northwest. You know, Willamette Valley fruit, fantastic. You put it under Oregon fruit. You can do whatever. These things, it makes sense. But there is another market. There's a market beyond people who are going to be shopping for that label. And you know, you all and your friends produce a lot of fruit, and you want to produce a lot more. That has to be sold on sort of a commodity basis across the nation to move it. It does. You know, you're well beyond the farm stand level here. We got to move lots of truckloads of fruit. So you have to serve a lot of different markets, some of which will certainly be the premium Northwest stuff, and other stuff just needs to be sold as a really high quality blackberry to make cobblers on the East Coast.
I'll add to that. So with some of the major retailers, we have done just a Marion Berry, and we package a Product USA, grown in the Northwest, and it moves, but just not enough for them to leave it in the SKU. So we've gone, okay, then how about if we promote that and we'll bring it out in the fall, and we'll just do that. And we do better, but just not enough. Just not enough for them to say, okay, I need to make this many movements through the SKU every week. So I think that's where I go back a little bit to your promotion, the health benefits. Maybe you can get that.
But that's one thing that we kind of took issue with, you know, the Northwest has, in my opinion, a lot better tasting, a better flavored berry than Arkansas varieties of Natchez, Ouachita, Chester. I don't count Chester as Northwest, sorry. But, you know, if we throw into a national, or, you know, blueberries through into a national, raspberries through into a national, and blueberries and raspberries from Michigan or New Jersey or here all basically taste pretty similar. They're not a whole lot of difference, but you taste a blackberry from South Carolina compared to here, it's night and day difference. And if we throw our budget in with the national and promote general blackberries, we're not gonna be able to, in my opinion, promote the fact that we have a better quality, a better flavored blackberry than any place else in the United States.
But I think we're missing the point. These guys that are packaging fruit don't care. Okay? I mean, they do care to a certain degree, but they're gonna look for the fruit that they can buy the cheapest because they've got to compete with their competitor who's doing the same thing. And so we can, I think locally, it seems like we can have that advantage, but when you're talking about all these pounds coming into the country, we've got to sell them in order to impact our industry as well. And if they just come in and they're not charged for any fees for promotion or something, it's just going to glut our market. We're not going to be able to get anywhere with it. So you just have, I just feel like we have to remember that these guys that are making products out of our fruit are competing with another guy that's making products with our fruit, and they're getting them from Mexico and Chile and South America and Northwest Washington and Oregon, and they've got to compete with each other, and so we're not going to be able to really control all of that. And so we've got to build the industry as a whole. That's my opinion on it. Because honestly, if you're running a business, you'd love to support the Northwest Blackberry if you're that company that cares. But if the other guy is buying it cheaper, how can you compete?
I'm not disagreeing with you at all. And actually on the commission, we struggle with this on a regular basis. But I guess the one thing that I point out is that if you're gonna sell it as a generic blackberry, you gotta price it the same. And you know, you're looking at 85-cent, 90-cent finished price Mexican doobies coming up here. That's a grower price of 45, 50 cents. Are you gonna raise Marions for 50 cents?
You know,
We won't have a choice, is the question. I think we have to figure out a way to do that. Our production has to change. Our research in robotics or whatever needs to be done needs to change so we can compete on a different level with these guys. We're not going to stop these guys from bringing in all these pounds from Mexico. They're making too much money.
You're exactly right there.
well, and it's a complicated issue, but like, the bottom line for me is you want a bigger market, period. You want more people buying blackberry, period. And then Oregon is going to have to fight for whatever share it makes sense based on quality and efficiency, price point that it can get. But I think the only way you can move the needle is to go big and make a bigger market. And then let the chips fall where they may. Because you can't keep out Mexico, you can't worry about Chile, Yugoslavia, China.
Has the market been growing? What's the trend?
That's what this.
For blackberry.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw out a couple of figures. So last year in the United States, $1 billion worth of blenders were sold. So also, the American consumer spent $1 billion on frozen fruit. So how do you want to approach it as a market? If you want to make blackberries a bigger piece of that $1 billion, that it needs to be known out there by the consumer that, hey, yeah, I need to buy some blackberries. That's a great, healthy fruit.
No, absolutely, and absolutely. And to answer your question, I think the fresh has been growing more than the processed in the United States as far as sales. I don't have the numbers.
You're right, yes.
Yeah. I heard, you would maybe know this as well, Stan, but I heard it was somebody from a big food company, big national, multinational food company. And they were saying that, you know, the product they're putting on retail store shelves, they're not selling food to the retailers, they're selling cash flow. Whatever that space on the shelf is this big, they're gonna put a box or a bag of something. And the retailer doesn't so much care what that is. What they wanna see is, right? And they want margin and they want velocity, okay? That's what the game is. I mean, that's what we're trying to, you know, and you can do a vote, everyone can understand that Marions are the best. At the end of the day, what does this off the store shelf? And it isn't just flavor. It isn't just the fact that it's from the Northwest. Those things are good, those things are important. And some people certainly would go, I want best tasting berry from the Northwest. But many other people buy on price or, you know, other factors. And that's the way the retailers look, and it's been mentioned. I mean, Brian, you were basically touching on that point. So that's what we're all up against, all of us together, when it comes to trying to move that product through. Blueberries, I mean, blackberries don't just sell against their blackberries, they sell against blueberries. What's in the blender? What's in the blender?
Triple-berry blend.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people looking to get in that blender. I mean, there's mango tropicals, now it's green stuff, right? There's a lot of competition to get in the blender. And you know, this room needs to be focused on what can we all collectively provide to get in that blender? How do we make people choose to get in there? And I would point out, you know, there's a market for Ferrari and there's a market for Honda Civic. You could say Ferrari's a better car, but you're going to sell a lot more Honda Civics. So there's a mix of offerings, makes sense. And you guys, again, you guys produce volume. I mean, there has to be velocity behind what you're trying to do. You're not doing boutique stuff. Lots and lots of stuff has to sell. I mean,
Mark, why you think that this corporate tax that they're trying to promote in Oregon here, is that going to affect everything? You know, we're going to be more disadvantaged, or you have another 5% or 10% more?
Well, I'm thinking about
going to get by it, and
I'm gonna go up
grocery stores going to get hit by it, or everybody else.
I'm moving in next door to Stain, I think. No, it was said, well, I said it before, that if we're trying to sell into Japan or Korea or Arkansas, they don't care what our minimum wage is, they don't care what our corporate tax rate is. We have to compete on a commodity price basis. So yeah, it'll hurt. It's not gonna help. It'll make us less competitive. Period.
So what would happen if we did away with the North American Free Trade Act?
Oh, that's a big topic, isn't it?
And probably something that's not gonna happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, exports are, I mean, it cuts both ways. I mean, you know, it's not necessarily NAFTA stuff, but, you know, I mean, Stan, you guys have been pretty active in exporting. You know, we don't want to get too much of a trade war going on. The exports have been an important part of what we're doing as well. So, I think, yeah, it's, what can, you guys need a 20,000 pound an acre, thornless, machine harvested, tastes good enough like a Marion, you know, I mean, berry.
And one that trains itself.
One that trains itself.
And what price would you pay for that?
No, because I do think, the question, I do think people know what Marions are in a general sense. It's not necessarily branding them, like Stan was saying, but McDonald's has bought millions of pounds of Marion berries, okay? Somebody just doesn't need to go back there and tell them what it is. They know. They're concerned about supply, consistency, they're concerned about price. There's other considerations that come in there. So it's, I think rather than being focused on selling the best berry, you guys should be focused on selling the most profitable berry for your farm, whatever that is. And I think there's going to be opportunities. High yielding, thornless, you'll have opportunities.
You haven't seen any, you know, with the variability of all these different varieties we're growing, there used to be predominantly Marions and Blackberries, and you're going to sell them thrown in. Now you've got, what, 12 or more? different varieties, and they're different shapes, a little bit different flavor, maybe they're good flavors, but they're a little different. Are you able to just mix in the top, you know, in the poly bags and in the mix, you know, however you sell them, be able to run right from, let's say, an Obsidian into a Marion, or, and the buyer doesn't have any problem, they're just a Blackberry?
My short answer is less and less of that is available.
Yeah, I agree.
Buyers getting pretty sophisticated, they spec things pretty specific.
So you sell by variety to these people? And they don't push back on any variety?
Well, yeah, I mean, there are varieties that people won't take. But it's pretty transparent anymore. There are some opportunities to sell like a generic Blackberry, but the big buyers generally know exactly what they're buying.
So if you've got a Catata that's thorny, produces really well, or a Black Diamond that's thornless, I mean, those are our two big producers. Does that thorniness make a big enough advantage or disadvantage to go with a thornless? You see what? If you wanted a grower to plant something that's going to get the biggest volume and a fairly decent quality, you're probably looking right now at Catata or Black Diamond, right? Is there, which would you guys prefer?
I prefer to buy and sell a thornless variety.
The risk factor, I think all of us have had an issue out there with thorn. And it's a difficult issue to get past, or recall something, or I think all of us have had an issue.
Larry, just a minute, sorry. Larry, just a minute, I just add to that real quick. Like, we have customers that like Catatas. We sell Catatas, and they love them. The way I flip it around is, if all Blackberries had been thornless up till last year, and a new high-producing thorny variety was introduced, it would never make it to market. It'd be dead on arrival. The only reason thorns are allowed today is because they've been there forever, and it's just, in my opinion, it's just a matter of time until they're gone. Food safety, I mean, too many, that's, Larry?
Yeah, I guess it's disappointing to go to Costco or Walmart and see no poly bags of strictly blackberries or marionberries, okay? But I guess question, you know, you're thinking about moving stuff off the shelf. The triple berry blend is a big mover. Are we moving as many blackberries through the triple berry blend as we did when we had our own bags in the Costco, Walmarts?
Many times more. Yeah.
More? Okay, good answer.
Blackberries are kind of a co-star. I mean, that's the other thing. Even there's blackberry cobbler, there's blackberry, but in the freezer section, blackberry is a co-star. It goes with things way more than it's straight. And that's not for lack of trying. It's not for lack of going out there and putting marionberry on the bag and trying to sell it. It's also berry that gets mixed in.
So if the buyers recognize names and you went to them today and said, I want to sell you some Columbia Giants, and they look at you like you got your head on backwards, what's the response then to a variety they've never heard of?
Give it 24 months. They'll want to take it back, do a cutting, understand more about it, do a test load. They like it, everything's good.
And so a 10 or 11 gram blackberry would be accepted or not?
What does a Marion weigh?
6, 7. You should know all that.
In
Mark.
general. That's not that. We don't sell a lot of berries that way. We don't sell a lot of 11 berries.
What if it was an organic Columbia Giant?
There you go.
Oh,
That might
it
be
fly. Yeah.
So it wouldn't, I mean, what if it was a thorny organic?
That throws in the risk
Today, I think thorny organic would sell
still, so.
because there's so many, I mean, Some VPs of some of these big companies have basically just said, thou shalt go get organic. And
You guys ever get a premium for hand picks? I mean, if you had somebody pick them by hand, if somebody wants to guarantee no thorns, you pick by hand, they should get
Yeah. For us, it's just a product out there that we have to run twice, and just one that we don't have thorns in.
So we're going overtime. If you guys want to keep us going, we can. But
What
otherwise-
price are we gonna get paid this year for the fruit?
Okay, that's it.
What's the market look like?
You want a piece of that?
Rock, scissors, paper.
It's quieter than I'd like it to be. None of our customers are leaving or cutting back. I mean, it's not calamity. But I'd like more calls right now. I'd like more people looking for fruit, especially because last year was not a big pound year. The biggest warning sign for me right now is the pounds were down last year, but yet most customers got pretty much everything they wanted. And I think there's a little bit of fruit sloshing around out there. Not a lot, but a little. Enough that you just kind of wonder, like, why didn't they come back and buy that? And honestly, it's an echo of the high price a couple years ago. I mean, we all know it destroys demand. I mean, people just, it hurts. I'm not just talking about whether it's a fair price. I'm just saying on the store shelf, it hurts demand. So, so I'm a little concerned, just seeing. I don't think that demand is going away. I think people are moving away from blackberries. I don't think there's anything like that. I'd like more heat in the market. And I'm a little concerned if it's a really big Marion crop this year.
What you also saw was a few years ago when blueberries were very high, that triple berry movement skyrocketed. And then now when blueberries have come at a different price, the triple berry is moderated a little bit.
Yeah, so in other words, is the triple berry price below or above blueberry?
Straight.
Yeah, because blueberry will sell, obviously, you're in the supermarket, it'll sell straight packed by the bag. That's kind of an index. I mean, when you say the blueberries in a bag by the pound are kind of an index for the other fruits.
So the obvious solution here is raise price of blueberries.
You're looking right on that.
People probably go along with that.
Is there a correlation between how much Mexico or whoever is bringing in and our price? Is that softening our price right now? Is it more important?
No.
You know, I guess one other thing I'd say, and I said it at one of these before, is there are relatively few really big buyers of what you guys produce, especially blackberries. I mean, when you get right down to it. The market is made by like, I don't know, 5. When I say a handful, I literally mean a handful. It doesn't mean that's the full market, but you've got a few big buyers. And one of the things that makes predicting where the market's going really, really difficult is if any one of those buyers really changes their program. One big buyer comes in, one big buyer goes away, they switch. It can have a very significant impact on the overall demand situation in the market. So you're not forecasting what hundreds and hundreds of customers out there are doing in managing big portfolios. It's a few big users. So it's that just more than Mexico coming in. In other words, if Mexico came in, it would be more because finally one of those buyers flipped, right? As opposed to just infiltration. Do you see it the same way?
I do. I'd also like to add, for your commission meetings, I've been trying to work on the national level to have South Korea allow blackberries. But if you could work on your commission level.
I was in a meeting with USDA about a month ago, and they think they'll have it either this year or next year.
Correct.
They got strawberries approved this year. No, strawberries, that's going into China. Blackberries are supposed to be this year in Korea and next year in China. That was their goal. But they are working on it.
Is that for raspberries also?
Yeah, I think so, I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Is that fresh or processed?
Both.
Do you see that as one of our bigger impediments, or what do you think our major impediments or major hangups are as far as increasing our volume, the demand for blackberries in the Northwest? Obviously, political is one thing. Limited buyers, 5 major buyers. Anything else that's limiting our markets?
Steady supply has been a big issue. I mean, I think if there was a more steady supply historically, going back decades, the industry would just be bigger now, all things considered.
Have you seen any effect on the devaluation of the American dollar at this point?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's been a big deal.
And how much more of that do you think we can handle?
Not much.
So that's-
So, one of the things these guys were talking about earlier was the bargaining association. I see that as a way to make the pricing of this whole thing more stable and more transparent. But I know there's gonna be a lot of resistance from certain processors for sure. Do you guys have a feel for whether you think a bargaining association of some type could stabilize our pricing? You're squared, did you receive that?
Yeah. I saw it, Stan jumped right on that question.
Yeah.
I think it can stabilize the price. By its very nature, it's kind of like its existence. I just look at it, I don't look at it, as a processor, I don't really care all that much. It's, because I'm always thinking, what do the customers think? At the end of the day, we have to sell your stuff, that becomes our stuff, go through to the customer. And I can't help but think, anytime a customer hears that, they're just gonna think, price is going up, it's gonna be harder to work out of that area. They don't immediately think, fantastic, there's gonna be a stable supply, I'm gonna buy a lot more out of there. Yeah, that may be the case at the end of the day, but I don't think most buyers would react favorably. They would just assume that's code for prices are going up.
Part of it I see maybe a little different with this compared to other commodities is that you have so much pressure from foreign product coming in that can easily set a carryover. And if you look at grass seed, this is the predominant area for grass. When you look at Mexico's producing a lot of blackberries for fresh, but yes, the comment was made, whatever is not going fresh, and we're overwhelming the fresh market, let's freeze it. Let's get rid of it. Same out of Chile. So that's the difficulty.
It's tough to find another way to stabilize pricing with this size market. We're reacting to what your customer demand is. That's good. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm just curious, the question was brought up about organic, and two of the things that you've said are that, when the price is too high, that discourages buyers, and when they can't count on a stable supply. In our experience in organic, which isn't significant, but it is some, obviously the tonnage was not nearly what it is grown conventionally, and we didn't think the taste was good. So I guess I'm curious, does that balance out when you said, hey, organic, that's going to be, there's a lot of demand for that. How does that balance out as far as cost and production? Because your production goes down, your costs tend to go up for organic. So how does that balance with conventional?
Absolutely. On the blueberry side, the market, I'll use that as an example, that's where I have the most experience with it. But the market just exploded for the desire of organic. So the price to the producer was right around three times the amount compared to conventional. And whether it would be that on Blackberry or Marionberry. And so then always always in the back of your mind, well, how long is this going to last? I mean, if you go into Fred Meyer, you look at all the promotion for organic. Will that last? The millennials are big buyers of organic. So it's hard for us to go to producers and say, look, this is a great opportunity, go do this, and yes, you proceed down the path, and it's 3 years later, you're there, your production has dropped off, and what will be the spread at that time? But right now, organic is a hot topic, and it's putting pressure on retail sales, whether it be blueberry or triple berry, being there's substantial organic blueberries coming in from Chile.
At a lower than what we can produce organic here.
No, I don't think that was it. It's just that they're carrying one item. They're only carrying organic and not conventional. So, but on the blackberry side, yes, if you are producing organic blackberries, fantastic. I think there's a strong demand. Strong demand means we can keep that price elevated.
You know, I would say, in a way, don't give too much credit to the intelligence of the buyer out there. I mean, you're not gonna solve that, really. I mean that. I think organic blueberries right now are priced as a luxury item. It doesn't make sense. I mean, they're priced well beyond probably what they will be in a few years, and they'll still be grown profitably at the lower price, whatever it is in a few years. We had a big national company come through a few years ago. We want organic berries from you here in the United States. Can't get them, not available. Well, like, well, why not? Like, well, we had them a few years ago. It's when it was starting, I don't know, mid-2000s, early 2000s. And Chile came on and they were cheaper, and you guys moved all your, you moved to Chile and you bought cheaper down there. So that's why. But they couldn't get it through their heads why we weren't growing them up here. Well, they don't understand, I mean, honestly. So don't overthink that. They don't understand. You're not going to figure it out. I would say look at your own fundamentals, see what makes sense. Everything will kind of revert back to making sense at some point. It'll swing, like, around. Be thinking in that way, but there's no solution. There's no one thing to do. Everything's constantly moving. Everything's changing. And you got to look at your own circumstances, look at your own cost of production, look at where the market is now, make a guess on what it's likely to do in the future based on listening to people like us, I guess. And then place your bets. But you can't, there's no solution, right? It's not an equation that can be solved.
Who's that?
That's not negative. That's
No,
not
no,
negative. That's just, focus your energy and your own fundamentals and you'll be fine.
But I think a lot of the knowledge you guys are passing on is really valuable. You just need information.
Can you sell an organic blackberry with 4 water wheat and softball?
Ooh.
Thanks for coming.